I never imagined that humiliation could look so beautiful, that it could wear silk, shimmer under fairy lights, and smell faintly of white roses. But there I was, sitting in the third row of my younger sister's wedding, watching her glide down the aisle like she was born for the spotlight. And maybe she was. Sienna always knew how to draw a room's attention without even trying. Her laughter was soft but commanding, her posture perfect, her smile practiced enough to look effortless. She was the kind of woman people compared me to when they wanted to say almost, but not quite. I adjusted the strap of my second-hand dress, one I'd spent 2 weeks altering so it would fit properly. The fabric itched at my shoulder, but I forced a smile anyway. Beside me, my 8-year-old son Noah swung his legs under the chair, his little suit jacket slightly too big. He looked so proud, so excited. "Mom," he whispered, eyes wide as he pointed to the chandelier above us. "It looks like stars." I nodded, pretending the lump in my throat was from awe and not anxiety. "It does, baby." "It's beautiful." The ceremony was grand, just like Sienna always dreamed. A lakeside estate just outside Seattle, complete with a floral arch, champagne fountains, and a string quartet that sounded like something out of a movie. Everyone looked perfect. Everyone except me. I wasn't supposed to stand out anyway. I'd learned long ago that my job in this family wasn't to shine. It was to survive quietly in the background. When Sienna and I were little, people used to say we looked alike. But over the years, that changed. Sienna became the version of Marlowe perfection my mother always wanted, poised, elegant, successful. I became the reminder of what could go wrong. I'm Elena Marlowe, 34 years old, single mother to the sweetest boy alive, and, according to my family, the family embarrassment. I never meant to be. I fell in love too young, with a man who promised forever and vanished before I even had a chance to ask why. By the time I realized I was pregnant, he'd blocked my number, moved cities, and deleted every trace of our relationship. I was 25, scared, alone. And when I told my mother, Catherine, she didn't hug me. She didn't even look surprised. She just sighed and said, "You've always had a talent for ruining good things, Elena." That sentence became the soundtrack of my 20s. I raised Noah on my own, worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at a cafe near Pike Place Market and nights at the front desk of a modest hotel downtown. Sleep became optional, but Noah's laughter made it worth it. He never saw me cry, not when the bills stacked up, not when Catherine refused to invite me to Christmas, not when Sienna got engaged and my name didn't even make it to the bridal shower list. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I didn't need their approval. But when the wedding invitation arrived, handwritten in gold, my heart fluttered anyway. The envelope was thick, expensive, smelling faintly of gardenias. Elena Marlowe and guest. Guest, not Noah. I called Catherine to confirm, pretending to laugh it off. "Oh, it's probably just a printing mistake," she said coolly. "But, maybe it's best to keep Noah at home. There will be champagne, adults, and we wouldn't want him to feel out of place." Her words hit like ice. Out of place. The mornings after that night felt strange. Quiet, almost empty, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of quiet that felt like space being reclaimed. Ava was still asleep when I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with a chipped handle, its flaws somehow comforting. I stared out the window at the street below. No cars honked, no voices called my name. It was as if the world itself had paused, waiting to see what I would do next. Weeks passed, and my parents seemed at a loss. Their texts stopped being polite requests. They turned into sharp reminders, sometimes veiled threats, other times pleading disguised as casual conversation. "We can help with bills if you just let us." Ava would benefit from her grandparents' guidance. Every message, though, carried the same weightless emptiness I had already grown accustomed to. They weren't offering help. They were testing boundaries. I didn't respond. Even my brother Ryan called one evening. "Pen, are you sure you're not overreacting?" he asked. "I've spent years overreacting to their words," I said, my voice steady. "This isn't overreacting. This is living without being manipulated." He was quiet for a long moment. I've been paying some bills too," he admitted. I thought maybe if we both kept them afloat they'd see reason. They never saw reason, I said softly. And now we don't owe them anything. That conversation marked a subtle shift. Ryan began to sidestep their manipulation too. He stopped forwarding their requests for money. He didn't argue anymore. He simply supported me from a distance, letting me take the lead, letting me claim what I'd already started taking control over our lives. I focused on Ava, her laughter, her drawings, her endless curiosity. It became my anchor. We started small traditions. Saturday mornings were for pancakes and storytelling Sundays, for walks in the park where she could draw stars, animals, whatever her imagination dreamed. I watched her grow into a world she deserved, a world where love wasn't conditional on approval or money. Then came the first sign that they were grasping for attention elsewhere. One morning I opened my email to find a poorly written message from a local community page. Penelope has been spreading lies about her parents, it read. Please know that we are a loving family and these stories are exaggerated. I stared at it, my hands tightening around my mug. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I shared the email with Ryan. He laughed quietly. Finally, they're losing their minds without us, he said. They started showing up unexpectedly. One evening while I was cleaning Ava's room, I heard a knock. My heart skipped a beat, a reflex I had not yet lost. Through the peephole, I saw their car parked outside, my parents smiling as if nothing had happened, waving at me through the glass. I didn't answer. I didn't even move. After a few minutes, they drove off, leaving me with a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. I realized then that they had always thrived on reaction on my anxiety, my guilt, my fear. Take that away, and they had nothing. Ava noticed the tension one evening. "Mommy, are they mad at me?" she asked, clutching her bunny hope as she perched on the edge of the couch. I knelt beside her, brushing her hair from her face. "No, baby, they just don't understand how amazing you are yet." She frowned, thinking. "Then we show them." I smiled softly, my chest aching at her innocence. "We show them by living, sweetie, not by waiting." As the weeks passed, I built new walls around my family, not walls of coldness, but boundaries firm and unbreakable. I refused to answer calls immediately, refused to transfer money, refused to let old patterns dictate our lives, and the more I held my ground, the bolder I became. Then came the social media incident. Someone tagged me in a local Facebook group a live stream replay titled, "The Truth About Our Daughter." My stomach sank as I clicked. There they were, my parents sitting in their living room, my mother clutching a tissue pretending to cry, my father arms crossed, glaring into the camera. Mom sniffled, speaking directly to the lens. "We've always supported Penelope. She's been telling lies, making us out to be cruel." Dad leaned in, voice sharp. "She's forcing money on us, needing help she doesn't deserve." And then, the line I would never forget, the one that cut through me in the same way it had over the phone months ago. "This child does not exist to us." I froze. My mind flashed back to Ava's birthday, to her sticky fingers, the melting candles, the hopeful glances at the empty gate. Her laughter, her innocence, her tiny heart that had already learned disappointment far too early. I closed the laptop, shaking, but not in fear this time, in resolve. The community erupted. Comments poured in, some outraged, some sympathetic. "Who can say that about a child?" one wrote. Another, "She doesn't owe them anything. I didn't post. I didn't comment. I let it play out." Ava skipped into the room, her small hands clutching hope. "Mommy, look at the stars I drew," she exclaimed. Her laughter filled the kitchen. My chest tightened, not from grief, not from anger, but with relief, with pride, that pure, untouchable joy. Weeks passed. Their social media accounts disappeared. Their church finally released a brief statement about family healing, which everyone in town understood perfectly. Their pride had cost them everything. The landlord had changed the locks, neighbors avoided their home, and the small town whispered about their hypocrisy. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post updates. I simply lived. Ava drew stars on the sidewalk chalk in hand, the smell of wet dust and sun warm in the air. She pointed at a perfect little star and said, This one's for Uncle Ryan. I smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. The morning after the reunion incident, sunlight poured through the kitchen window, dust motes dancing in the light. Ava was already at the table, humming while spreading jelly on toast. She didn't know about the videos circulating online. She didn't know the truth of the chaos her grandparents had caused. And that was how it should be. I sipped my coffee slowly, the warmth spreading through my chest. Ryan stopped by with groceries, his grin reassuring. "You look lighter," he said. "Maybe I am," I replied. The day passed in quiet routines. Laundry dishes, Ava's drawing session where she scribbled a rainbow across the page and proudly declared, "This is for our happy family." It hit me how far we had come. No longer living in the shadow of parents who demanded control, no longer pawns in their game of guilt and manipulation. Then came the first confirmation. Someone had tagged me in a local Facebook group livestream footage titled, "The Truth About Our Daughter." My stomach sank as I clicked. There they were, my parents sitting in their living room, my mother clutching a tissue pretending to cry, my father, arms crossed, glaring into the camera. Mom sniffled, speaking directly to the lens. "We've always supported Penelope. She's been telling lies, making us out to be cruel." Dad leaned in, voice sharp. "She's forcing money on us, needing help she doesn't deserve." And then the line I would never forget, the one that cut through me the same way it had over the phone months ago. "This child does not exist to us." I froze. My mind flashed back to Ava's birthday, to her sticky fingers, the melting candles, the hopeful glances at the empty gate, her laughter, her innocence, her tiny heart that had already learned disappointment far too early. I closed the laptop, shaking, but not in fear. This time, in resolve, the community erupted. Comments poured in, some outraged, some sympathetic. "How can anyone say that about a 6-year-old?" one wrote. Another, "She doesn't owe them anything. I didn't post, I didn't comment, I let it play out." Ava skipped into the room, her small hands clutching hope. "Mommy, look at the stars I drew," she exclaimed. Her laughter filled the kitchen. My chest tightened. Not from grief, not from anger, but with relief, with pride. That pure, untouchable joy. Weeks passed. Their social media accounts disappeared. Their church released a brief statement about family healing which everyone understood perfectly. Their pride had cost them everything. The landlord had changed the locks. Neighbors avoided their home. The small town whispered about their hypocrisy. I didn't celebrate, I didn't post updates, I simply lived. Ava drew stars on the sidewalk, chalk in hand, the smell of wet dust and sun warm in the air. She pointed at a perfect little star and said, "This one's for Uncle Ryan." I smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. Then came a letter, cream envelope, my name written neatly on the front. Inside a note from Aunt Virginia. "They chose pride over love. You chose your child. That's what family looks like." I folded it, tucked it into a drawer. Some victories don't need applause, they don't need an audience, they are quiet, permanent, unshakable. Ava asked that night as I tucked her in, "Mommy, will they ever come next year?" I paused, brushing her hair from her face. "No, baby, not anymore. But that's okay. We have our family and we'll make it even better." Her smile was soft, trusting, the kind that made every sacrifice feel worth it. The days that followed were simple but profound. Mornings with sunlight on the kitchen table, evenings spent reading stories under the soft glow of her nightlight. No fear, no guilt, no obligations beyond love and care. Ryan came by often, groceries in hand, jokes on his lips, laughter shared easily. We cooked together, celebrated little victories. Ava learning to ride her bike, the first batch of chocolate chip cookies, a new drawing pinned to the fridge with a note. "Family is us." Aunt Virginia visited, hugging both of us tightly. "Peace looks good on you, Penelope," she whispered. Over lunch, she shared quiet wisdom about boundaries, about love that didn't demand sacrifice of self. I listened, really listened, feeling the truth in every word. Later, while Ava colored at the table, Aunt Virginia handed me another envelope inside a single line. "Kindness with boundaries is strength." I read it slowly, letting the words sink in. That night, I watched Ava sleep, her hand wrapped around hope. The silence in our home no longer felt like absence. It felt like protection, a shield forged from love and careful choice. I realized I didn't dread tomorrow anymore. I didn't owe anyone peace but us. My parents had chosen pride, I had chosen freedom. That quiet, steady final choice was the loudest revenge I could ever give, not in words, not in confrontation, but in life lived fully in joy, reclaimed in laughter preserved. And as the weeks turned into months, life settled into a rhythm that felt like sunlight on the skin, like air after rain. Ava thrived, our small home, filled with warmth, creativity, and hope. I worked, laughed, and loved without the weight of their judgment pressing down. I realized then something that would stay with me forever. Some betrayals don't need a fight. They need boundaries. They need silence. They need courage to walk away. And some victories, the most important ones, are the ones that leave your child smiling, safe, and beloved. I tucked Ava in one last time that night, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Mommy loves you," I whispered. "Always, and nothing can ever take that away." Her small hand reached up, clutching mine in sleep, and I felt a wave of calm, unbroken and pure. Finally, the storm had passed. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful, earned. Noah tugged my hand. "Mom, are we going home?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, baby. We're going home." As we stepped outside into the rain, I looked back through the tall glass windows. Sienna was forcing a smile for the cameras again. Catherine was whispering furiously in her ear. Ethan stood apart from them, his expression unreadable. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. That night, after I tucked Noah into bed, I sat at the kitchen table staring at that napkin. The ink had smudged slightly from the rain. Just a name and a number.